Is Mellissa on the call?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry,
perfect.
I
Okay.
was having trouble with my video. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Let's see. I think I'm supposed to be admitting these people. Welcome to this session, 5-minute share out sessions on navigating frameworks. My name is Mellissa Withers, and I am an associate professor of preventive medicine at the University of Southern California. So I'm delighted to be here today. We have more people coming in. All right, great. We have 3 presenters today who will be sharing a 5-minute talk, and then we'll have a little time for some Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started without further ado. Also, I'm supposed to remind you to please do not click on close the breakout rooms because they will close for everyone. If for some reason you need to leave, you can just leave the room, but please don't close those out. All right, so thanks for that. And let's go ahead and jump into our first presentation then. Our first presenter is Reed Johnson from Bowdoin. Is that how to say it? Bowdoin College?
It is, yes.
Okay, great. In Brunswick. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Melissa. So I'm at Bowdoin College. I'm a lecturer in Russian, East European, and Eurasian studies. And much of my job is teaching the Russian language. And I wanted to say just a little bit about myself, that I myself only began studying the Russian language as a student in my second year of college. I think I was 19 or 20 at the time. And so so much of my teaching philosophy is sort of informed by having been essentially an adult learner of a foreign language in the same position that my students are as well. And I have to say, in all honesty, that I was not a very good language learner at all. And I think probably what distinguished me was not any kind of ability for language, but just sort of like a doggedness, sort of a perversity of spirit, as professors put it. I was just really determined to do well. And I think that I see this now. I teach courses in English as well as in Russian, and I've seen that for the course, for the language, second language acquisition courses, for the Russian courses, Russian language courses, that motivation is a much better indicator of success, I think, than sort of any kind of innate facility with learning language. And I think you've probably seen this as well too, particularly true in Russian, that all those things that we call grit, resilience, maybe doggedness, have a huge effect on sort of ultimately achieving a high degree of mastery, proficiency, at least in Russian. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and obviously, like many of you during the pandemic, I went back to my grading and my teaching strategies to think about different ways to do this, and especially within this sort of college mandated grading system, which I had been sort of displeased with, unsatisfied with for quite a while. So during the pandemic, I moved to both sort of more grading and less grading. More grading because I found that my students were doing the homework as sort of busy work, but they weren't really absorbing the vocabulary, the grammar, etc. We're just doing it, and they were getting credit for it. But there wasn't a real good facility with learning, as in sometimes just sitting down and wrote memorization, which American students are not particularly good at. And so I wanted to do quizzes at the beginning of every class that covered the same material as the homework, because in fact I sort of read about the cognitive benefits of frequent low stakes testing. So that's sort of like the more grading. The less grading was that I decided that when I did this, that I would allow unlimited retakes on all my formative assessments in the class. And this was a really simple idea, not by no means revolutionary, but at the same time, it was very transformative to how I teach, and I think how my students learn as well. They were able to take, I would tweak things so that they wouldn't retake the exact same materials, but everything but the final exam. They could retake as many times as they wanted. In fact, I had a student once who took the same declension quiz 5 times in a row until she got 100%, and she learned that material cold. I saw this, I think that this kind of learning more closely reproduces what I feel is the actual real life process, at least for me, the lifelong process, which is highly iterative, of trying to learn a foreign language. Instead of this very sort of artificial setting that school provides, in which there's you just like one chance to get it right. There's no iteration. There's no learning from mistakes, etc. And where you're always privileging someone's facility in picking up a new language. And as we know, students widely vary in their ability to do this, much more so than in other subjects, I think. Foreign language is true. Students loved it. They consistently noted this on their evaluations, that they learned more, and they were more excited about learning. They were less stressed about it. And I should say that also nearly all my students got A's, unless they themselves decided that they were happy with a B. And in fact, at the beginning of the course, I would say to them, my commitment to you is that I want you all to get A's in this class, and I'm going to do what I can. If you're motivated to do it, you're going to get an A in this class, because I'm going to do however many retakes of these quizzes and tests and work with you on this material until you get an A. And most of them do. And in fact, I see this as a feature, not a bug of the system, right? If all my students get A's, that means, or rather, if they don't all get A's, I feel like I failed in some way. And I think anecdotally, just to round off this, I've seen the couple years of doing this, that the students who consistently take advantage of this policy of retaking, who have done multiple retakes of quizzes and tests, actually do better on the final exam when I don't allow retakes. And as opposed to the students who sort of get it right the first time. And so what this tells me is that because of the spaced repetition, the benefit of spaced repetition, which is well studied, this is a strong benefit. I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Oh, I love that idea. And I'm sure we'll have some questions about it. But let's go ahead and move on to our second speaker. So Martina Kerlova is here from Northwestern University, talking about the extrinsic values of ungrading.
Yeah, hello everyone, Martina. I am a instructional track, teaching track, professor of instruction, teach in 2 departments, the Slavic department and also the German department. I myself come from a former communist country, so I am somewhat familiar with a version of a 3-column rubric, because communism tended to the average. So if you didn't make it up to the average, you fell through the cracks completely. But if there were some exceptional students, they also did not see any additional motivation, no incentives to keep going. And this is something that I keep reminding myself when we are talking about ungrading, because at Northwestern, we see a lot of students who put everything into getting into the school. They consider themselves achievement driven, and they actually, the fact is, they do want grades. So as much as we embrace the only honorable position I can imagine in teaching, which is the growth of the students, we are actually trapped between several corners that keep pressing on us. One of them is the existence of a language requirement. Another one is keeping up with what would be considered a standard curriculum, that we do not slow down too much, but also the vision of the students in the administration, because the administration responds to the students' wishes, and not a lot of them value grades. So we did have to accept that we are kind of an elective. A lot of students consider their pre-professional courses the core interest, and our role is to still make them educated about the outside world. And if they go on study abroad, that is one of my priorities, that they do not reflect this caricature of an ugly American. So we are also fighting for as many students as we can to at least dip in the language, and it could be only 1 quarter requirement. For study abroad, we have only 1 quarter requirement, so that they can say hello and thank you. And even that is disappearing, because the interest of the study abroad office is to send as many students as possible, and many students see it as an opportunity to have fun and not to actually engage with the culture that they are traveling to. So we have so many incentives that we want to somewhat combine, and the outcome is only that we fully embrace ungrading in our practices as a tool, but we don't necessarily call it ungrading. I think that our keynote speaker, Susan, has already touched up on it. We don't necessarily put a label on it because we do not want to be the first field at Northwestern, academic field, to openly pronounce that we are moving away from grading, because that's going to hurt us. And it may hurt us in a way that Northwestern can completely do away with the language requirement, as we have seen in many other colleges, but we still see in our classrooms that even students who do not like studying languages, once they enroll in a language class because they have the requirement, we are still able to excite them. And some of them actually stay and choose to take the way to proficiency. So, and the other aspect of not having a language requirement at all is that we will continue sending students on study abroad with no language proficiency at all. And I personally do not want to see that. So, so this is where we are standing, and I want to present it less as a vision of selective colleges having their noses too high, but more as an explanation, and also calling for maybe suggestions how we can navigate this, because it is what Northwestern considers a standard, giving grades according to the Canvas roster, and we end up doing the summative grades at the end of the quarter. But we, in our classes, in our classrooms, we totally embrace the ungrading philosophy. And I just want to give one example. So we also struggle with enrollments, as you're also familiar with. And just last year, we've made an experiment that we moved down to fewer contact hours and also openly more ungrading policies. And we did see a growth, a double. The enrollments have doubled in our Russian classes, but the price is that we slowed down. The curriculum is moving much slower, and we cannot promise the students that they will be actually at a low A2 by the end of the year. And we will end up stretching the textbook that we are using in the first year all the way to the second year. So, so we are facing these questions, and this is what I wanted to present, and maybe even get some feedback from you guys if you're experiencing something similar, or how you would navigate yourself. Well, thank you. I'm hoping there wasn't more than 5 minutes.
Perfect timing. Thank you so much. And looking forward to hearing if other people in the room have experienced these same issues that you're grappling with. But let's move on then to our third and final presenter for this session. Megwen Loveless is from Tulane University and talking about ungrading for proficiency. Oh, you're on mute.
Let me just say, you guys, I have never done a 5-minute presentation at a conference, and this is the coolest thing ever. I'm really excited about this. I'm excited to be able to hear so many different ideas in such a short period of time. I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. You're probably going to see a really ugly desktop because I didn't organize well. But here we go. So I wanted to talk to you guys just about a pilot project that I tried in the fall. I've been really conflicted about grades for some time now. And I found that the student population has really changed. Our demographic has really changed since COVID. And I think not just because of COVID, I think that there are some other like long-term structural things happening that's really changing what our student population looks like. So I started in the fall a new project. This was in introductory and intermediate Portuguese. I'm the director of the Portuguese language program, so I have I'm very blessed to have some wiggle room to try some new things in the curriculum. And I came into this really, really excited. What we did was we used Blue Books, and in the first 5 to 10 minutes of every class, students were given a prompt, which was either grammatically or in terms of vocabulary related to the content that we were working on in that unit. So goals, as I'm sure a lot of you who are interested in ungrading have similar goals. Encourage proficiency, right? We're leaning a little bit away from grammar accuracy and toward really expressing oneself in the target language, but also to encourage risk-taking, allow for differentiation, allow for creativity. More and more, I'm trying to structure our Portuguese classes so that they are teaching lifelong skills and not just language skills. Allow for ownership and for independence, right? I really wanted students to be able to make of this course what was interesting and important for them. Create a dialogue between instructor and student. As you can imagine, if you get these short writing samples from students every single class, you're really getting to know them on a much more intimate level. And this is a really big one, lessons stress, right? I'm trying to cut down on the stress. Like Reed mentioned, I'm trying to bring in more low stakes activities in a more iterative way, right? And to decrease the competitive pressure, right? So students aren't looking at other blue books. Students really don't have a sense of what others are doing. So I put together just a couple examples here. And the prompts are, I believe, at the top, although I might have cut it when I did my crop. As you can see, different kinds of responses. We had, this is 2 different students. So a couple things sort of jumped out at me in terms of prose. It really is, and you can particularly see in this second example, it really is encouraging proficiency. The model was students did a prompt in the first 5 to 10 minutes of class, and in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the next class, were invited to redo that prompt, right? So I made some markups, I made some comments, and then if I wrote down here, otra versión, that means a new version, right? So I'm looking for a new version. And as soon as they get a star, yay, they've accumulated a point for that. It definitely encourages risk-taking. It definitely allows for differentiation, creativity, ownership, and independence. In this sense, it's checking a lot of boxes. Definitely creates a dialogue between instructor and student, but I found that it didn't lessen stress for everyone. It lessened stress for some students because, again, they had as many opportunities to do it as necessary. If they needed 5 versions, they could do that. But a lot of students, and you can probably see from the student on the right, they just really felt under pressure, right? And then it did lessen competitive pressure for several of them. But in the cons category, it was very difficult, for example, with this first, with the example on the right, it was very difficult to encourage the student to write more. It was really difficult to get him to that next level. And I found that a little bit frustrating. And it did create stress for students in terms of the amount of time we had. 5 to 10 minutes was really short for some students. It didn't allow them to do as much as they wanted. But the number one con was that students ended up getting very, very behind. And that was incredibly overwhelming and disappointing and really stressful by the end of the semester. So I wanted to this last slide here, I just wanted to show you. This here is me in the last 2 weeks of the semester noting all of the prompts that are missing, right? All of the prompts that didn't get that star. And that means that students are having to come in during office hours, which, ostensibly isn't terrible, except that it's happening toward the end of the semester. They really accumulated and it became a real problem to the point where I decided that this wasn't actually checking all the boxes. This wasn't, it wasn't meeting the anti-stress goal for me, and the pros didn't outweigh the cons. It was an awesome experiment, really glad that we did it. But ultimately, I'm actually moving more in your direction, Reed, and sticking with a slightly different model.
All right.